Well, today I'll be talking about bands whose fourth albums are their best, of course, in my opinion. So yeah, definitely been a while since I've uploaded a new video. I believe the last video I did was about 2 weeks ago or so I do apologize for that. It's just lately I've just had my mind on other things, but either way, it's nice to be back. But let's go ahead and dive into this. These albums will be in no particular order, but the first album I do want to talk about is from the band 311 with their album Transistor. Now, when it comes to choosing a favorite 311 album, you definitely get a variety of answers from fans. I know a lot of people point to the Blue album as their favorite, or Grassroots. I've even seen some people mention From Chaos, but for me, I've always been a really big Transistor guy. I mean, I know this album is not for every fan. Of course, you do hear the argument of, oh, this album has too much filler, or maybe not enough hip-hop influence, or not enough rapping, and this and that, and many other things. But for me, especially over time, this album has just grown to be my favorite from the band. I really like this album a lot. But yeah, you have 21 tracks on here, and I understand the filler argument, but I'll be honest, this is definitely one of those albums I can listen to from front to back with no issue. I don't know, I personally really dig this album a lot. I mean, something you notice with this album is, of course, you notice there's less hip-hop influence, especially compared to some of their other albums. Instead, you have more reggae influence, and you can notice that in songs like Rub-a-Dub and Stealing Happy Hours. But of course, you do have your more hip-hop moments, such as in songs like Galaxy and The Continuous Life. But if I were to name some of my favorites on here, of course, the title track, Beautiful Disaster, which is the big song on here. You also have Prisoner, which to me, I think is one of their more underrated singles. That's maybe one of my favorite 311 songs, if I'm being honest. You also have Use of Time, which to me has one of their best solos. I mean, really like that song a lot. Definitely one of my favorites on the album. And then Stealing Happy Hours to me has always been one of my favorites in terms of the band's album closers. But yeah, I think you get a lot of really good deep cuts on the album. A lot of songs that I feel are somewhat kind of overlooked and, of course, underrated. Songs like Galaxy, Borders, The Continuous Life, and I really like Rub-a-Dub, especially when it comes to the more reggae side of things. I also like Jupiter too, and I also like the bass work from Peanut and songs like What I Was Thinking. But yeah, all around, really dig this album a lot, and probably one of my favorite albums of 1997. But let's go ahead and move on to the next album. Going to a classic here with Rocks by Aerosmith. This is another band where you definitely get a variety of answers in terms of picking a favorite album. I know a lot of people point to an album from the 70s or maybe even the 80s, like an album like Permanent Vacation or Pump. But for me, I gotta go with Rocks. When it comes to a front-to-back album listen, I think this one is probably my favorite, and of course, easily my favorite when it comes to their 70s work. I know a lot of people love Toys in the Attic. That would probably be my second or third favorite when it comes to their 70s stuff. I do also really like Get Your Wings too. But yeah, Rocks has to be my favorite. I mean, of course, you have Back in the Saddle and Last Child on here, which are the big songs on the album, but I think you have other really strong songs on the album too, such as Get the Let Out, which is probably one of my favorite deep cuts from the band. I also like Sick as a Dog, and I do like Joe Perry's vocals on Combination, if I'm thinking of the right song. Nobody's Fault is another really good song. I do also like Testament's cover of Nobody's Fault. Kind of an underrated cover. I like that one. But yeah, Aerosmith Rocks, definitely my favorite from the band. And next we're moving to something a bit heavier, moving into the world of melodic death metal or Melodeath. Arch Enemy with Wages of Sin, their first album with Angela Gossow, who to me is the best singer they've had. I do like the Elisa stuff. I think they've been getting better and better with each album so far with her in the band. Honestly, I'd say Deceivers is maybe one of the band's best. I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion, but personally, I really dig that album. But when it comes to Arch Enemy, this album is easily my favorite, while Anthems of Rebellion would probably be in close second. But talking about the world of melodic death metal, this is probably one of the best albums from that genre, I'd say. Again, really strong album, and if I were to name some of my favorites, you have some of my favorite Arch Enemy songs on here, like Enemy Within, which is maybe my favorite album opener from the band. Burning Angel is another one I really enjoy. You also have Ravenous, which is one of the bigger songs on the album, definitely another highlight on the album. You also have Savage Messiah, which, if I'm being honest, probably a top 5 Arch Enemy song for me. I really like that song a lot, especially musically too. Get some pretty solid guitar work in that song, especially from Michael Amott. Web of Lies to me is probably one of the best deep cuts on the album. I really like that song too. Behind the Smile is also really good, probably one of my favorites when it comes to the second half of the album, but all around, really great album, and maybe one of the best metal albums of 2001. But now we're moving to something a bit more melodic. We'll be moving to Incubus with their 4th album, Morning View. Now you definitely get a variety of camps when it comes to the Incubus fan base. You have your people that just only like the 90s stuff, or just like everything up to Science, or they only like stuff from Make Yourself and on. For me, I like most of their stuff. Really, the only album I'm not too big on is If Not Now When, but even that album has a few songs I like. Age, I think, is alright, but easily one of their weakest though. But when it comes to picking a favorite Incubus album, it's a pretty easy choice for me. It's got to be Morning View. And this would be their final album with Dirk on bass. And nice, that album opens up with maybe my favorite Incubus song. That song, of course, being Nice to Know You. I really like that song a lot. Some pretty strong melody in that one. And you also get some other really strong melody in other songs like Wish You Were Here and Echo. But I think this album has some of the band's best deep cuts, such as songs like Blood on the Ground and Echo and 11 a.m. I really like that song a lot. Definitely underrated. Just a Phase, musically, probably one of my favorites. And I also dig the DJ work in that song too, or the scratches. And RUN, to me, is maybe one of their more underrated singles. Doesn't really get the same love as other big singles from them, like Drive or Pardon Me or Wish You Were Here, of course. But RUN, I think, is one of their best singles. I really like that song a lot. But yeah, Morning View, great album. But let's go ahead and move on to Lacuna Coil with their 4th album, Karma Code. I know with Lacuna Coil, a lot of people point to Comalies as their best or as their favorite. That album would be in close second for me. I think Comalies is a really strong album. But I don't know, I really like Karma Code. If this would be their final album with the producer that I can't remember his name, but they would move on from this producer and start working with Don Gilmore on the next album, Shallow Life. But I really like this album a lot. So this has grown to me maybe one of my favorite albums of all time. Front to back album listen, not a single skip in my opinion. And yeah, the singles are great, of course, like Our Truth, which was my introduction to the band. Within Me has some of the best vocal work on the album in my opinion, especially from Christina. I do like their cover of Enjoy the Silence. I don't know if it's one of my favorites on the album, but I still do like that cover though. But I feel like I feel like the lesser known songs on here I think are also really strong, such as songs like The Game and What I See, definitely underrated. I also like Without Fear, especially dig the vocal work in that song especially. Devoted's another catchy song on the album that I enjoy, and Fragile, which is maybe one of the heaviest songs on here, arguably, maybe. I definitely dig the riff work and the verses especially, but that's probably one of my favorite album openers from the band. But yeah, and of course, Andrea and Christina definitely have continued to show that they have great chemistry with this album, and yeah, all around, really great album. And if you haven't listened to it in a while and you're a Lacuna Coil fan, definitely give it another listen. Again, I know Comalies is commonly considered the favorite or their best, but I personally really like Karma Code a lot too, but Comalies would probably be second place again. But moving into the world of thrash metal, one of the big four, we got Megadeth with Rust in Peace. So you have your Peace Sells people, but you also have your Rust in Peace people, and I'm in the Rust in Peace camp. Peace Sells, of course, would be second place, but Rust in Peace is probably one of my favorite albums of all time. Definitely one of my favorite metal albums of all time, easily, no question. I mean, It opens up with probably one of the greatest metal songs of all time, or two of my favorite metal songs of all time, with Holy Wars and Hangar 18. Hangar 18 is a contender for maybe being my favorite Megadeth song. I really like that song a lot. And then Holy Wars, I mean, it's a classic and often considered one of the band's best for a reason. Killer guitar work throughout, and that song definitely further proves that Dave Mustaine is definitely a legend for a reason, a thrash metal legend, or a metal legend in general. But you have other really great songs in here, like Tornado of Souls, which of course has one of Megadeth's best solos ever. And you move towards the other songs. I really like Five Magics. That's probably one of my favorite Megadeth songs, and honestly, kind of an underrated song on the album. Doesn't get the same kind of love as other songs like Hangar 18 or Holy Wars, of course, but I personally really like Five Magics a lot, and I think Rust in Peace Polaris is one of the band's best album closers too. But yeah, all around, really, really good stuff. Definitely one of the greatest metal albums of all time. Moving on to Brazil, we'll be talking about Arise by Sepultura. So with Sepultura, this is another band you get a variety of answers when it comes to choosing a favorite album. When you ask fans, I mean, you have your roots people, but you also have some people that point to Chaos AD or this album or even Beneath the Remains. But I got to go with the Rise. Sure, the production style maybe a bit dry, kind of like with Injustice for All, but personally, I don't mind the production on this album. And this was, you can maybe say that this was their last, I guess, thrashy album, at least when it comes to the Max Cavalera era, because when it comes to Chaos AD, they go into more groove metal direction. But of course, you have your thrashy moments on that album too, such as in a song like Biotech is Godzilla. But Arise has to be my favorite. I mean, it opens up with one of the band's best album openers with the title track. I mean, Dead Embryonic Cells and Desperate Cry are also classics. You also have really good deep cuts like Subtraction and Altered State. I also like Infected Voice, which is maybe one of the thrashiest songs on here. But yeah, really dig this album a lot. And probably one of the best metal albums of 1991, if I'm being honest. But next we'll be moving to the world of metalcore, and my favorite album from probably my favorite band in the world of metalcore, Trivium, with their album Shogun. Now, when it comes to picking a favorite Trivium album, a lot of people point to Ascendancy, but I've also seen a lot of people point to this album too. And I'm definitely a Shogun guy. I mean, of course, I do love Ascendancy. I mean, I'm going to be seeing Trivium live with Bullet for My Valentine 2 in April. I'm definitely looking forward to that, doing VIP for both bands. Super stoked for that in early April, but this one has to be my favorite. Front to back, listen, this one has to be my favorite in their discography. And to me, I think they have no bad albums. I know some people are not big on the Crusade and Silence on the Snow, and I mean, and I get the reasons too, but I like those two albums. But Shogun has to be at the top for me. I mean, Kurisoke Gomen is probably one of my favorite Trivium songs. You also have Down from the Sky, which I think is easily one of the band's best singles. I also like Into the Mouth of Hell We March, another one of my favorite Trivium songs. You move towards the second half, where you get some pretty good deep cuts, like of Prometheus and the Crucifix, and He Who Spawned the Furies. But yeah, all around, definitely one of the best albums to come out of the metalcore genre, and easily my favorite from Trivium. And to me, the best one. And that would be their final album with Travis on drums. But now we're moving to, we'll be continuing the whole metalcore thing with Unearth, with The March. So with this band, a lot of people point to The Oncoming Storm as their favorite, and I get it. I mean, The Oncoming Storm is definitely a great album, but that album would be either second or third for me. I do also like In the Eyes of Fire, too, if I got the title right. The album that came after The Oncoming Storm, but for me, I gotta go with The March. I really like this album a lot. It opens up with the song that got me into them, that song being My Will Be Done, easily one of their best singles, and probably one of their catchiest choruses too. But I think the rest of the album is also really good, such as songs like Hail the Shrine, which is definitely a banger, and you also have Letting Go. which is one of the more different sounding songs on the album, but still feels like Unearthed though. Not as intense or as heavy as some of the other songs on the album, but I personally really dig it. One of my personal favorites on the album. And then Crow Killer and Grave of Opportunity are a couple other songs I think are some of Unearthed's best songs. And then you have Truth or Consequence, which is definitely in competition to maybe being my favorite album closer from the band. I really like that song a lot. Kind of underrated, I'd say, but yeah, The March, really great album, and of course, easily one of the best metalcore albums of 2008, in my opinion. And now for the final album for this video, we got Fair Warning by Van Halen. This is another album on my list where there'll probably be some people that might disagree with me on this one, because I know a lot of people point to the debut as their favorite, and for understandable reasons and for good reasons too. I mean, the debut is probably my second favorite. So many classics on there, of course, like Running with the Devil and Ain't Talking About Love and many others. But for me, I really love Fair Warning. Fair Warning is actually one of my favorite albums of all time. This is an album I can listen to from front to back with no issue. And you also have probably some of the band's heaviest songs too, and of course some of my personal favorite songs from the band too, like songs like Mean Street and Unchained. But I do think you get some pretty good deep cuts like Dirty Movies and Hear About Later. I do like Push Come to Shove, which is one of the more mellow songs on the album, or one of the more grounded, but all around, absolutely love this album. Definitely my favorite from Van Halen. But yeah, those are bands where their fourth album is their best, again, in my opinion. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.